Tonight is Tisha B'av, a very sad day filled with tremendous amount of history, calamities throughout our Jewish history, but it's a day that we have a good opportunity to meditate into a little bit of why we've experienced such terrible things during the course of our history and do whatever we can to get a little bit closer to our God. In any case, I want to continue a little bit with talking about the covenant before we get to the third step in the Back to Basics, which is about the giving of the Torah. And last time I talked about Abraham and Sarah and their amazing faith in God and how they were able to really pierce through everything in order to understand what the essence of it all was all about. But we discussed how religion really doesn't describe what Judaism is, because a religion is just a belief system, and you believe it or you don't believe it. A covenant takes this to a whole different level. And the reason why it's so important to understand what a covenant is and how Judaism is so unique is because it's really the motivating factor behind why we do what we do. So if you're doing or involved with or practicing in any form Judaism, then if you're not doing it for the original reason why it was established in the first place, there's something on the foundation that's really missing. And that's why it's so important to understand what a covenant means. So a covenant in general, of course, is for people. It could be a marriage and a marital contract, could be with two good friends, could be with parents and children, could be with a variety of different situations where people establish a covenant. There's a relationship there. And because of that relationship, there is a very deep, binding agreement that we need to do something together. And we need to agree to certain things, how we're going to go forward in this relationship. So the foundation of Judaism is based on a relationship that God had with Abraham and Sarah. And that relationship is really the driving force, and that's the relationship that God wants and wanted to have with their children, a relationship. So part of that relationship, let's say if I have a covenant with somebody, we are deep friends, we're lovers, we're this, we're, whatever the description of the relationship might be. But if we decide that there are certain quote unquote rules of the relationship, then those rules are an outgrowth of the relationship. What happens if I get to the point where really the relationship is nothing, means nothing, is so empty, and the rules become a burden, and the rules are just totally irrelevant to my life? And obviously there's something very wrong with that covenant. So if, let's say, with a parent, if I wanted to have a covenant with my parent about certain things, well, it's because of the relationship that I'm making the covenant. So the do's and the don'ts of that rule book, so to say, that we might agree upon are because of that love or that mutual respect or whatever it might be between us. So what I'm pointing out is this, that when we practice Judaism, we have to remember that the rules in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, are crucial. They're important. They are the yesod, the foundation of our Jewish practice and Jewish life. But when it comes down to it, they are an outgrowth of the relationship. And that's why spending time and thinking about what is that relationship with God that I have? What is the meaning of it? Who is God? What is God? How does God impact on my life? What is my involvement in this? How do I feel something? How do I feel a relationship with God that I would realize that I really am part of a covenant, and as a result, I will fulfill these commandments. Now, as we know, we fulfill the commandments and do what it says in Shulchan Aruch and Code of Jewish Law, whether we really feel that covenant or not. That the covenant is something that is important, but it's not the only aspect in any way of what Jewish practice is all about. My point is that if we're not focusing on that covenant, let's say we're just doing what we need to do. Yes, and there are many people who use the term, not many, but some people who use the term, I keep basic halacha. So can you imagine if in a covenant, if I asked you to do this, and you just say, okay, I'm going to do the basic minimum in order to get by, that you're going to think that this covenant is important to me. It doesn't work that way. To the contrary, a person who has a relationship, then when they are asked or when there are certain rules that are set up in that relationship, they will do what they can to go even beyond what the covenant says or beyond what the rule book says. because they're going to feel that this is something that's of importance to my partner in covenant. And as a result, this covenant is important to me. So I'm going to really invest my energy, invest my time, invest my learning in making this covenant real. And that's why when we look at Judaism, we should take the word religion out of our vocabulary. Not that it's not also a religion and it's not also a culinary aspect and there's dress codes to it and there's all types of other philosophy and theology and language and many other aspects of what being Jewish is all about. But the core of it is that we really have a bris, we really have a covenant with God, how to run our lives, how to make this world a place, how to fulfill the purpose for the creation of the world, and how to really enjoy life to its fullest, the way the Creator set it up to be in the first place. And this is a gift that has tremendous value. That's really, for all practical purposes, valueless. But we only look at it from, oh, another rule, another do, another don't, another thing I have to do, and so forth and so on. As the story goes, that somebody was climbing up a mountain, and as they climbed the mountain, for some reason they were told that they had to pick up every single rock on the way. And of course, as you're climbing up the mountain, it gets difficult enough. When you're climbing up and putting rocks into a sack, it gets even more difficult. And every rock takes on the sense of an extra burden of, why am I doing this? But when we look at the rocks, or if the rocks indeed are diamonds, and you're going up the mountain and collecting diamonds, then in fact it's a whole different situation. And our attitude is completely different. Because then we feel then there's some purpose for why we're doing what we're doing. And that's really what we want to do as Jews. We want to feel that there's some purpose for why we do what we do as Jews. Why do I do anything concerning kashrut? Why do I do anything concerning Shabbat? Why do I keep the morals in the valley? Sometimes they might be very difficult for me, or they might involve some financial loss or some sacrifice in some part of my life. Why should I do that? Just because I'm religious? Not necessarily. That's part of it. But because I feel that the relationship is important, and I don't want to step away from or minimize that importance. So I hope that this short little thought gives you also some food for thought, and be able to think about it. How does that aspect of covenant affect you? And in what way do you feel a covenant with the Jewish people, a covenant with God, a covenant with those that really depend on you to rise to the occasion and realize, you know what, we're very blessed. We're blessed to be part of this covenant with God. We're blessed to have the values and the morals we have. We're blessed to have the mitzvahs that we have. And we shouldn't be looking at them as burdens or as taking away from aspects of my life or impinging on who I am and who I really want to be. But to the contrary, they're really there to enhance you and enhance your life and fulfill you and give you that sense of meaning and purpose in your life. And that's a real blessing that we should not take for granted. So have a great rest of the day. Tonight, of course, is the beginning of Tisha B'av, the beginning of the only other 25-hour fast of the Jewish year besides Yom Kippur. It's a day of tremendous introspection, a lot of prayer, and let's hope that by the end of the day, we're going to see Mashiach, and we're going to all be able to celebrate together in Jerusalem, B'Korov Mamash.